When the first invite arrived, Eliza thought it was a joke in poor taste. She was at her desk on the 32nd floor of a glass tower in Canary Wharf, watching the river shine like metal under a gray January sky. Her inbox was a familiar storm of subject lines: compliance reminders, client revisions, risk notes flagged in red. She lived inside calendars and spreadsheets. Her life was meetings. So when a meeting invite popped up at 0914 with the title Incident Review 0928, she frowned as if the computer had sneezed. It came from her boss's account, Graham Lyle, managing director, a man who liked everything neat: fonts, decks, people. Eliza knew his habits. He booked meetings weeks in advance and never used caps unless he was furious. The invite was scheduled for 20 minutes later. No agenda, no location, no call link, just a single line in the description: watch the dock. Eliza stared at it, then at her office window, then at the river beyond the towers. She moved her mouse to decline. Her finger hovered. The building's internal chat pinged. A colleague sent a laughing emoji and wrote, "Lol, did you get the weird invite from Graham?" Eliza typed back, "Yeah, probably a misclick." But her pulse had already shifted into an uncomfortable rhythm. She clicked on Graham's profile picture: a polished headshot, gray suit, neutral smile, eyes that looked like a checklist. Under his name, his status read, "In transit." That was right. Graham was on a flight to Zurich for an investor roadshow. He'd left at dawn, had texted the team at 0603, "Going dark for takeoff. Behave." Eliza checked her phone. Flight tracking showed the plane in the air. No Wi-Fi message from him. No new emails. She glanced back at the invite. The start time ticked closer: 0928. The description sat there like a dare: watch the dock. Eliza's desk faced the water, but the dock wasn't visible from her angle. The dock was down near the service entrance, where deliveries came and contractors smoked. She could see only the tops of cranes, the glint of railings. Still, the words had lodged under her ribs. She stood, pretending she needed coffee, and walked to the communal kitchen. On the way, she detoured to a window that looked down toward the riverfront. The dock lay below, a strip of concrete and steel. Two men in high-vis jackets stood by a pallet. A woman with a takeaway cup leaned against a railing, scrolling. Everything looked normal. At 0927, Eliza's calendar reminder chimed. At 0928, something moved wrong. A forklift lurched. Not a dramatic crash, just a sudden, ugly jerk, like a body losing balance. The pallet shifted. The high-vis men shouted, soundless through glass. The woman near the railing stepped back instinctively, heel catching on something invisible. She fell. Not into the river, onto the concrete. Her head hit with a dull finality that Eliza felt in her teeth, even from 32 floors up. People ran. A figure waved both arms. A phone was lifted to call emergency services. Eliza stood frozen, coffee untouched, watching a cluster form around a shape that didn't move. Her calendar popped another notification. Meeting started. Incident review. 0928. Eliza's mouth went dry. She returned to her desk like someone walking out of a dream. Her team was buzzing now, messages firing in the internal chat, everyone asking if anyone had seen. Someone wrote, "Ambulance at West Dock." Someone else, "What happened?" Eliza didn't type. She clicked the meeting invite again. There were attendees listed, half her team, yet no one had joined, because there was nothing to join. But the invite had been sent. The time had matched. The words had pointed her eyes at the dock, and it had come from a boss who was supposed to be 30,000 feet in the air. Eliza spent the rest of the morning performing normality, like an actor who'd forgotten the script. She answered a client email with polite precision. She adjusted a slide deck. She even attended a meeting about quarterly exposures where someone joked about the universe telling us to take a break, and Eliza laughed at the appropriate moment. Inside, she kept replaying the fall. She opened the invite and stared at the metadata. The organizer field showed Graham. The timestamp showed it was created at 09:14 and sent immediately. The system marked it as originating from Graham's corporate account through the firm's scheduling service. Not spoofed from outside, not forwarded. It was as if Graham had sat at his laptop and typed the words himself. Eliza tried to call him. It went straight to voicemail. She messaged his assistant, Kendra. "Is Graham online? Weird calendar invite from him this morning." Kendra replied 10 minutes later. "He's on flight. No Wi-Fi. Landing 12:40 local. Why?" Eliza stared at the screen until the words blurred. She tried to be rational. Account compromise, someone with access, IT glitch, a scheduled template misfiring. But that line, "watch the dock," was too deliberate. At lunch, she went down to the ground level and stepped outside, pretending she needed air. The riverside walkway was wet and wind-bitten. The dock area was cordoned off by temporary barriers. A security guard stood with crossed arms, face tight. Eliza didn't try to cross. She stood back with the others, watching. The woman's bag sat near the railing, like a forgotten prop. Someone had placed a foil emergency blanket over the body, but the outline still looked too human, too final. Eliza's stomach twisted. She looked away, toward the towering glass that housed her office. Every window reflected the sky, like a blank eye. A man beside her said, "Bloody awful." Eliza nodded, not trusting her voice. The man continued, low, "You work up there?" "Yes." He glanced up. "You see it happen?" Eliza hesitated. "From far." He made a sound between a sigh and a laugh. "Canary Wharf. You can see everything and nothing at the same time, can't you?" Eliza turned to look at him properly. He wore a navy coat, mid-30s, ordinary face, a messenger bag strapped across his chest. The kind of man you'd forget an hour after meeting him. His eyes, though, were too attentive. "Eliza," he said, extending a hand as if they were at a networking event rather than a cordoned accident scene. "Tom." Eliza didn't take his hand. "How do you know my name?" Tom's smile flickered. "Sorry, I heard someone call you earlier." No one had called her. Eliza felt the hairs on her arms rise. The wind was cold, but this wasn't just weather. Tom kept his tone casual. "It's shaken everyone. These things happen, but when they happen in front of a tower full of people, it feels like a message." Eliza forced her face neutral. "A message from what?" Tom tilted his head. "From whoever watches." "From whatever system decides. You analysts love patterns, don't you?" Eliza's mouth went dry. Tom's gaze drifted to her lanyard, her company logo. the badge clipped to her coat, then back to her face. "Be careful with your calendar," he said softly, as if offering friendly advice. Eliza didn't respond. Tom's smile widened by a millimeter. "See you around." Eliza stared at the second invite until her eyes ached. 15:06. An oddly specific time, the kind you'd never schedule a meeting for unless you were trying to match something else. Her mind immediately offered a rational explanation. Someone phishing the team, trying to cause panic, using Graham's account to disrupt operations. She could picture the cyber training videos. If you see suspicious activity, report it. And yet the description sat there like a hand on her shoulder. Don't take the lift. Eliza's office tower had 36 floors. Lifts were life. No one took the stairs unless they were punishing themselves. She forwarded the invite to IT security with a short note. Possible account compromise. 2 suspicious invites from MD's calendar. Please investigate urgently. She almost added, one appeared to predict a fatal accident. She deleted that line before sending. It sounded insane. The afternoon dragged. Every time her computer chimed, her heart jumped. Colleagues made jokes about cursed calendars. Someone set their status to watching the doc and got a few laughs. Eliza didn't join in. At 14:58, her colleague Priya stood up. "Coffee run, anyone?" Eliza forced herself to speak. "I'll come." They walked toward the lift lobby with a small cluster of coworkers, talking about nothing. Eliza's eyes kept flicking to the digital display above the lift doors. Arrows, numbers, the mechanical promise of movement. Her phone buzzed in her pocket. Another calendar reminder. Client sync, 15:06. Eliza slowed. Priya turned. "You okay?" Eliza's mouth was dry. I forgot something at my desk. Go ahead." Priya rolled her eyes affectionately. "Always you. Meet us down." Eliza watched them approach the lift doors. 5 people. Lanyards. Coffee cravings. Normal. The lift arrived with a soft ding. Doors slid open. They stepped inside. Eliza stood at a distance, frozen between wanting to scream and wanting to believe nothing would happen. The doors began to close. Priya looked out and waved. "Hurry up!" Eliza raised her hand weakly in return. The doors shut. The lift display showed it descending. Eliza turned sharply and walked back toward the stairwell, as if following the invite's instruction might make it less real. She pushed open the heavy door and stepped into the stairwell's concrete hush. She started downward. Her footsteps echoed. At 15:05, she reached the landing between floors 29 and 28. She paused, breath shallow, listening for something, anything. At 15:06, the building jolted. Not like an earthquake, like a mechanical shudder, a groan of metal and cable that ran through the stairwell walls. Eliza grabbed the handrail, knuckles white. Somewhere below, a scream rose and cut off. The emergency alarm didn't immediately sound, which was worse. The silence after the shudder felt like the building holding its breath. Eliza's phone vibrated with a new message from Priya, sent seconds earlier. Lift stopped. Lights flickering. "We're fine, lol." Then another message, 30 seconds later. "Eliza." And then nothing. Eliza didn't know if nothing meant their signal had died or something else had. She ran down the stairs. By the time she burst into the ground floor lobby, security was already moving. A cluster of people stood staring at the lift bank. One of the lift doors was half open, misaligned, like a mouth that couldn't form words. A guard shouted into a radio. Another held up a hand to keep people back. Eliza pushed through to the edge of the crowd, heart hammering. The digital display above the lift flashed an error code she didn't recognize. A paramedic arrived, then another. Someone brought a stretcher. Eliza looked at the time. 15:10. She saw Priya's coffee cup on the floor, split open, brown liquid spreading like a stain. Eliza backed away, nausea rising. Her calendar pinged softly, a new invite. Follow-up, 1722. From Graham's account. Description: stop trying to be smart. Eliza left the building at 17:05 with her coat half buttoned and her heart bruised. She didn't know the full story yet. Security and emergency responders kept information tight, but she knew enough. The lift had stalled between floors. Someone had panicked. Someone had tried to pry the doors. Someone had been hurt. Priya had been taken to hospital with a broken wrist and shock. Others were shaken, bruised, alive. Alive was the word Eliza clung to like a railing. Still, the invite had been right. Eliza walked along the water toward the DLR station, letting the wind slap her cheeks as if trying to wake her up. She needed to talk to Graham. Not email, not chat. Voice. Something real. But Graham was still in the air. Kendra confirmed it with another message. He's on flight. No contact yet. What's happening? Eliza didn't know how to answer without sounding like a conspiracy theorist, so she typed, "Serious incidents at Wharf. And his calendar is sending bizarre invites. Please call me when he lands." The invite titled Follow-up 1722 sat in her calendar like a bruise. She didn't accept it. She didn't decline. It kept existing. At 1721, Eliza stood on the DLR platform and watched a train slide in. People stepped off. People stepped on. Canary Wharf shimmered in the distance, a skyline of money. Eliza checked her watch again. 1722. Nothing happened. For a moment, relief loosened her lungs. Maybe it was over. Maybe the last invite was just taunting. Maybe... The platform's display flickered. A loudspeaker crackled, then fell silent. A man near the edge of the platform swayed, like he'd stood up too fast. He reached for the railing and missed. He stumbled forward. Eliza saw his foot catch, saw the angle of his body, saw the inevitable drop. A woman screamed. The man fell onto the track. The DLR train's brakes screamed as it tried to stop. Metal shrieked. People surged backward. Eliza's stomach turned inside out. The train stopped short, inches from the man, but not before the crowd felt the terror of almost. A guard ran. Someone called out instructions. The man on the track lay still, not crushed but stunned, the kind of stillness that could mean anything. Eliza stared at the time display, 17:23. Her hands shook. A notification popped up on her phone. An email from Graham. Subject line, "Just landed. What's all this about?" Eliza's chest tightened so hard she could barely breathe. She typed with frantic precision, "Are you sending calendar invites? Are you online?" Graham replied almost immediately, "No, I've been in the air for hours. What invites?" Eliza's throat went dry. So it wasn't Graham. It wasn't him multitasking from a plane. Someone else had access, or someone else was wearing his identity like a coat. Eliza looked out at the track, where staff were now helping the fallen man, where people were crying and filming and shaking. Then her calendar chimed again. Another invite. Risk Committee, 0802, tomorrow. From Graham. Description. Bring your umbrella. It won't help. Eliza felt tears sting her eyes, not from sadness, but rage. Whoever this was, they were playing with her life like it was a spreadsheet. And they were doing it with a calendar invite. Eliza didn't go into work the next morning. She sat in her kitchen with her laptop open, the curtains half drawn, tea gone cold beside her. She'd barely slept. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the man falling toward the track, saw Priya waving from the lift doors, saw the woman on the dock hitting concrete. Patterns, Eliza thought bitterly. She'd built a career on patterns. She opened the calendar invites and printed them, one by one. She wanted something physical, paper she could hold, evidence that didn't vanish if an account got wiped. 3 invites, 3 predictions, 3 descriptions like instructions. She called IT again, more insistent now. She was routed through security protocols, asked to verify identity, asked to wait. Her voice stayed calm because she learned calm got you further than panic. Finally, she was connected to an information security analyst named Rafiq. "I see your ticket," Rafiq said. "We're investigating unusual activity on Mr. Lyle's account." "Unusual activity?" Eliza repeated, throat tight. "Someone is using his calendar to predict." "To schedule meetings," Rafiq corrected gently, as if humoring her. Eliza inhaled sharply. "No, to map real incidents. People are getting hurt." Rafiq paused. Eliza heard typing. "Can you forward me the invites as .ics files?" "I already did. I mean directly, with headers." Eliza did it again, hands shaking. Rafiq's voice returned, lower. "The invites were created from inside the network." Eliza's blood went cold. Inside? Yes, not from an external login, no foreign IP, no suspicious device token. It looks like it came from a trusted machine. Eliza whispered, "So someone at the firm." Rafiq didn't answer. Silence, careful. Eliza's mind raced. Graham's assistant. Someone in his exec circle. Someone with delegated access. Someone who could impersonate him cleanly. "Can you lock his account?" Eliza asked. "We can reset credentials," Rafiq said. "But if someone has physical access to a logged-in session, resetting passwords won't matter until the session is terminated." "Eliminate all sessions," Eliza said. Rafiq hesitated. "That will disrupt operations." Eliza felt something hot and sharp rise in her chest. "People are getting hurt." "I understand," Rafiq said, and Eliza heard he did. He sounded like someone who'd worked too long in systems and knew how often warnings came too late. "We'll terminate sessions," he said, "and we'll audit delegated access. I'll call you back." Eliza ended the call and stared at her printed invites. The paper looked harmless, like stationery, but it held a map, times and places. Her eyes caught on the last one, Risk Committee, 0802. That time was absurd. 2 minutes past 8. Not a normal meeting slot, not a time anyone would choose for executives, which meant it wasn't a meeting time. It was an accident time. Eliza's phone buzzed. A new invite arrived anyway, sliding in like a knife. 1-1, 0758. From Graham. Description: "You can still choose to be early." Eliza's stomach flipped. She looked at the clock. 0741. Less than 20 minutes. She hadn't planned to leave her flat. She hadn't planned to step into the city's machinery again. But the invite sat there, taunting, suggesting she had agency while proving she didn't. You can still choose to be early. Eliza grabbed her coat. She took a black cab, not the tube. The driver was talkative, the kind who filled silence with opinion. Eliza barely heard him. She watched the streets through rain-specked glass, her phone turned off in her pocket, like Jonah had once advised someone else, long ago, in a different story. She didn't want more messages. She didn't want more tones. She wanted to arrive before the time, to steal back a sliver of control. They reached Canary Wharf at 0755. The plaza was half awake. Commuters moved like shadows between towers, umbrellas bobbing. The air smelled of wet stone and coffee. Eliza paid quickly and stepped out, heart hammering. She didn't go into her building. She moved toward the walkway overlooking the river, the same stretch where the dock incident had happened. Her eyes scanned for anything that looked wrong. A man stood near a bench, hands in pockets, face turned toward the water. He wore a navy coat. Tom. Eliza's stomach clenched. She froze. Tom turned as if he'd been expecting her. His smile was polite, perfectly placed. "Morning," he said, as if they were colleagues running into each other. Eliza's voice came out thin. "Who are you?" Tom stepped closer, just enough to make her feel the distance closing. "I told you." "Tom." "That's not an answer," Eliza snapped. Tom's smile didn't move. "You work with numbers. You like answers. But London doesn't always give you those." Eliza's hand slid into her pocket, fingers wrapping around her keys, like a weapon she didn't want to use. Tom glanced at her pocket, then back at her face. "You've been trying to make this a crime story," he said softly. "It's not. It's a schedule." Eliza's stomach turned. "You're behind the invites." Tom didn't deny it. "It's amazing, isn't it? How people obey calendars. A tiny block of time, a little ping, and they rearrange their lives. They step into lifts. They stand too close to edges. They look where they're told." Eliza's mouth went dry. People died. Tom's eyes flickered, the smallest crack. "People die every day. You work in finance. Don't pretend innocence is your brand." Eliza felt rage flood her. "Why me?" Tom's gaze sharpened. "Because you noticed." Eliza's heart punched her ribs. "So you're punishing me?" Tom chuckled softly. "No, I'm inviting you. There's a difference." Eliza took a step back. "Stay away from me." Tom tilted his head. "It's almost 8. Eliza's blood went cold. 07:58, the time on the invite. She turned sharply, scanning the plaza, the river, the walkway, people. Nothing obvious. Tom's voice slid in behind her. "You came early. Good. That means you get to watch." At 07:59, a cyclist sped across the wet plaza, tires hissing. A pedestrian stepped out without looking, distracted by their phone. The cyclist swerved, the bike skidding. The pedestrian fell backward, head striking the edge of a stone planter with a sickening finality. A scream tore the air open. Eliza stood frozen, stomach hollow. She felt like she'd been forced to witness a rehearsal. Tom spoke softly, almost kindly. "See? The city is full of accidents. All I do is place a pin on the map." Eliza's hands shook. "You could have stopped it." Tom's smile returned. "So could you." Eliza turned on him, eyes blazing. "What does that even mean?" Tom's gaze held hers, calm as glass. "It means you're learning the real lesson. The calendar doesn't cause it. It reveals it." Eliza's throat tightened. "That's sick." Tom shrugged lightly. "That's London." He stepped back, already slipping away into the crowd. "Tomorrow," he said, voice casual, "bring your umbrella. It won't help." Eliza stared at him as he disappeared, then at the injured body on the ground, then at the towers, watching with blank windows. Her phone, still in her pocket, buzzed even though it was off. A notification seeped through the dark screen like a ghost. "Invite updated. Risk Committee, 0802. New description. Now you understand." Eliza didn't go home. She couldn't. She followed the ambulance to the hospital in a daze, not because she knew the injured person, but because her conscience needed to anchor itself to something human. She stood in the corridor while staff moved with efficient calm, while the smell of antiseptic and wet coats hung in the air. When she finally left, her phone had dozens of messages, colleagues asking if she was okay, Kendra begging for clarity, IT saying they'd terminated sessions, Graham calling, voicemails stacked like unanswered questions. Eliza sat on a bench outside the hospital and called Graham back. He answered on the second ring, voice sharp with stress. "Eliza, what the hell is going on?" Eliza's throat tightened. "Someone used your account to send calendar invites. They matched accidents. People got hurt." There was a pause, then Graham exhaled, heavy. "That's impossible." "It happened," Eliza said, forcing steadiness. "IT said the invites came from inside the network. Do you have delegated access set up? Anyone who can schedule on your behalf?" Graham went quiet. Eliza felt her stomach drop. "Graham?" His voice returned, lower. "My assistant, Kendra, and my old EA before her, but she left." "Anyone else?" Graham hesitated. "A couple of senior ops people for board logistics. And what?" Eliza pressed. Graham's tone hardened. Eliza swallowed, anger and fear mixing. "This isn't about competence. This is about someone weaponizing your identity." Graham's voice sharpened. "We've been through cybersecurity training. You don't accuse people without evidence." Eliza almost laughed. "Evidence? You want evidence? I watched a woman die because your calendar told me to look at the doc." Silence crackled. Graham finally said, quieter, "Eliza, are you all right?" No one had asked her that in a way that mattered. Eliza's voice trembled. "No." Graham swore softly. "Okay, listen, I'm going to pull logs. I'm going to talk to security. We'll handle it." Eliza closed her eyes. "You don't understand. This isn't just someone stealing access. It's someone predicting, mapping, like they already know." Graham exhaled. "Then it's someone internal. Someone who knows operations. Someone who knows when incidents are likely." Eliza's mind clicked. "Risk modeling." Graham's voice was cautious. "What?" Eliza stared at the night sky above the hospital entrance, thinking of Tom's words. "The calendar doesn't cause it. It reveals it." She whispered, "Someone is running probabilities. They're identifying weak points, busy platforms, tired commuters, wet surfaces, faulty lifts, and then sending invites that line up with those high-risk windows." Graham's breathing was audible. "You're saying someone is predicting accidents?" "Yes," Eliza said, voice hardening. "And then they're making sure someone is there to witness, to validate the prediction, maybe to film, maybe to profit." Graham went silent, then said slowly, "Eliza, we have a risk analytics subcontractor. They help with operational modeling, incident likelihood, footfall, maintenance scheduling." Eliza's stomach clenched. "Who?" Graham named a firm. Eliza recognized it, a consultancy that did predictive safety for transport hubs and corporate estates. They'd given a glossy presentation last quarter about preventing accidents before they happen. Eliza's mouth went dry. And who was in that meeting? Graham hesitated. Operations, security, facilities, and you. You built part of the dashboard. Eliza's chest tightened. She remembered the slides, the heat maps, the time windows, the probability spikes. She remembered thinking it was clever. Now it looked like a blueprint. Graham's voice was low. "We'll meet tomorrow, in person, not on email." Eliza swallowed. "And Tom?" "Who's Tom?" Eliza's skin prickled. "A man. He knows my name. He was there. He spoke like he knew what would happen." Graham's tone tightened. "Eliza, Don't talk to strangers about this. Eliza almost laughed again, bitter. He's not a stranger anymore. He's a shadow with a calendar. She ended the call and sat in the cold, feeling the city's machinery humming around her. She knew what she had to do next. If the calendar was mapping accidents, then the map existed somewhere, and she had helped build it.
Monday morning, Eliza arrived at the office before anyone else. The tower was quiet, lights dimmed, security guards moving like ghosts. She scanned her badge and stepped into the lift lobby, then hesitated, remembering the invite. Her throat tightened. She walked to the stairwell instead and climbed, breath burning, each step a stubborn refusal to obey. On the 32nd floor, the office was empty, desks sleeping under dark monitors. Eliza went straight to the risk dashboard folder on the shared drive, the one she'd helped maintain. Her fingers moved quickly, fueled by fear and clarity. She opened the latest heat map report. It displayed Canary Wharf and surrounding stations as a grid of risk scores: slip hazards, crowd crush probability, platform edge incidents. Each cell pulsed in color like a heartbeat. Each risk had a time of day spike chart. Eliza's eyes narrowed. She looked at the timestamps that had matched the invites: 0928, 1506, 1722, 0759. She searched the report for those minutes. There were spikes. Not exact, but close. Clusters of elevated risk around those windows. The forklift area had a high risk score during delivery hour. The lift maintenance schedule showed an anomaly in the afternoon. An overdue inspection flagged but deferred. The DLR platform edge showed a surge in risk during evening commuter flow. Eliza's skin went cold. Tom hadn't been psychic. He'd been reading a model. Eliza clicked into the log history. Who had accessed the dashboard recently? The system showed user IDs, timestamps, IP ranges. Her breath caught. A user account she didn't recognize had accessed the dashboard multiple times over the past month, always shortly before the invites. The username looked generic, like a service account, but the access pattern was human. Eliza copied the log entries and saved them to a USB drive she'd brought, hands shaking. Then she opened her email and found something even worse. A sent folder under Graham's account, accessible because she'd been delegated for scheduling when his assistant was busy, showed the invites. But the invites weren't the only thing sent. There were draft emails, unsent, sitting like loaded weapons. Subject lines like, Confirmation 1722, Validate Event 1506. Each draft contained a single line, Witness present. Eliza's stomach dropped. So the invites weren't just predictions, they were coordination. Someone was marking whether the prediction had been observed, recorded, confirmed. Eliza stepped back from the computer, nausea rising. She suddenly felt like she was standing inside someone else's crime scene. A sound behind her made her spin. Footsteps. Someone had entered the office. Eliza's heart slammed. Graham? Too early. Security? Unlikely. A figure appeared between rows of desks. Tom. He stood there as if he belonged, hands relaxed, navy coat impeccable, smile polite. "You're quick," he said softly. "Most people don't realize they're holding the knife until it's in their hand." Eliza's mouth went dry. "Get out!" Tom's gaze flicked to the USB drive on her desk. His smile sharpened. "Ah, evidence. That word again.
Eliza forced her voice steady. "You're using our risk model to stage—" Tom lifted a finger, gentle. "Not stage, predict, and then nudge." Eliza's throat tightened. "People are getting hurt." Tom's eyes were calm. "People were always going to get hurt. The only difference now is that you're aware of the clock." Eliza's hands trembled. "Why send them from Graham?" Tom shrugged. "Authority, plausibility. A familiar name makes people obey." Eliza's mind raced. "You're inside our system." Tom smiled. "You built a beautiful machine. I just learned how to read its gears." Eliza backed toward the exit, keys in hand. "If you come near me—" Tom's smile widened, almost affectionate. "I'm not here to threaten you, Eliza. I'm here to offer you something." Eliza's voice shook with rage. "I don't want anything from you." Tom stepped closer, and Eliza smelled expensive soap and rain. "You do," he said softly. "You want control. You want the city to make sense. You want the calendar to mean safety instead of fear." Eliza's eyes burned. "You're insane." Tom's gaze held hers. "No, I'm practical." He tilted his head. "There's an invite coming, not from Graham." Eliza froze. "What?" Tom smiled, and for the first time his politeness felt like a blade. "From you."
Eliza's phone buzzed. She hadn't touched it. She hadn't opened her calendar, but the screen lit up with a new invite notification. Eliza Hart. Urgent. 10:11. Organizer. Eliza Hart. Eliza's stomach turned to ice. "I didn't send that." Tom's eyes glittered. "Not yet." Eliza's hands shook as she opened the invite. The description read, "Go to the glass bridge." The glass bridge connected two towers over a plaza, a sleek corridor suspended in air. People used it to avoid the rain, to move between buildings without touching ground. It was always busy mid-morning. Eliza looked up at the clock on her monitor. 10:06. 5 minutes. "No," Eliza whispered. Tom's voice was soft. "This is your lesson. Everyone thinks the villain is the person holding the weapon, but the real weapon is attribution." Eliza's throat tightened. "You're framing me." Tom's smile stayed gentle. "I'm showing you how easy it is." Eliza's mind raced. If an invite went out from her account and an accident happened at 10:11, she would be the organizer, the predictor, the suspect, the person people would look at when they tried to make sense of coincidence. Tom stepped back slightly, as if giving her space to choose. Eliza realized with sick clarity, if she ran to the glass bridge and tried to stop whatever was coming, she'd be there, on camera, right at the time. She'd look guilty. If she didn't go and something happened, she'd still be blamed because the invite came from her. Tom's smile deepened. "It's beautiful, isn't it?" A perfect trap, like finance. Eliza's fists clenched. "How are you doing this?" Tom shrugged. "You left your laptop unlocked once. Everyone does. A session token is just a door left ajar." Eliza's breath came shallow. "What do you want?" Tom's eyes softened, almost sincere. "I want you to stop pretending the world is random. I want you to admit you can see the clock." Eliza's mind flashed to Priya, to the woman on the dock, to the man on the track. She swallowed hard. Then, very carefully, she did something that surprised even herself. She opened the invite. She clicked the organizer field. She clicked View Details. She looked at the attachments. There was a file attached, tiny, disguised as a normal agenda document. Eliza clicked without thinking, then stopped herself. No, don't open unknown files. Don't execute anything. But she didn't need to open it. She needed to capture it. She dragged the attachment to her desktop and copied it to the USB drive with shaking hands. Tom watched, head tilted, amused. Smart. Eliza forced herself to speak. If you're so sure about 1011, you could stop it. Tom's smile didn't move. Then it wouldn't be a lesson. Eliza's eyes burned. You're not predicting, you're orchestrating. Tom's gaze sharpened. I nudge. The city does the rest. Eliza glanced at the clock. 10:09. She made a decision so fast it felt like jumping off a ledge. She grabbed her USB drive, locked her screen, and ran. Not to the glass bridge, but to Graham's office. Graham wasn't there yet, but his door was secured with a keypad. Eliza punched in the code she knew from assisting with board materials. The door clicked open. Inside, Graham's office smelled of leather and money. Eliza slammed the door and dialed security. When the guard answered, Eliza's voice was steady, in a way she didn't feel. This is Eliza Hart. Lock down the glass bridge immediately, now, and send staff to intercept a man in a navy coat, mid-30s, named Tom. The guard hesitated. Ms. Hart? Why? Eliza cut him off. Because there will be an incident at 10:11. Silence. Then the guard's voice sharpened. How do you know that? Eliza swallowed. Because my calendar says so. At 10:11, the glass bridge didn't collapse. It didn't shatter. It didn't turn into a spectacular disaster like a film. It did something far more plausible. A maintenance worker, rushed, irritated, had been instructed to replace a panel on the bridge floor, one of the reinforced glass tiles. The work order had been moved up unexpectedly that morning. The tile had been loosened, lifted slightly, and then set back without properly seating because someone was trying to finish before the commuter surge. A woman in heels stepped onto the tile. The tile flexed. Her heel slipped into the gap. She fell hard, twisting, her scream echoing through the enclosed corridor. People surged. Someone shouted for help. Someone filmed. Security arrived faster than usual because Eliza had called, because doors had been locked, because staff had been positioned. The crowd was held back. The woman was helped. Her ankle was clearly broken, but she was alive. She was not a headline. Eliza watched the live security feed from a monitor in Graham's office, hands clenched, stomach hollow. She didn't feel relief, exactly. She felt fury that the difference between life and death had been a few minutes of warning and a phone call. The security guard beside her stared at the screen, then at Eliza. How did you know? He asked, voice tight. Eliza's throat burned. Someone sent an invite from my account. The guard's jaw tightened. We intercepted a man matching your description near the bridge, he said. He slipped away before we could approach, but we got him on camera. Eliza's chest tightened. Tom. The guard nodded. He looks like he belongs here. Eliza laughed once, humorless. That's his whole job. Her phone buzzed again. A message, not an invite. Unknown number. Good call. Eliza's blood went cold. He was still watching. Then another message. Now you're useful. Eliza's stomach twisted. She realized Tom had wanted her to succeed. He'd wanted her to call security, to prevent a worse outcome, because now he could prove something even more dangerous, that Eliza would act on the calendar, that she could be manipulated to move resources, lock doors, shift staff on command. He didn't need her to be framed as a killer. He needed her to become his lever. Eliza turned to the guard. I need to speak to Graham as soon as he arrives, and IT, and legal, everyone. The guard's expression was wary. This is serious. Eliza nodded. It's not just serious, it's a system. She looked back at the security feed. The glass bridge, now cordoned, looked harmless again, a place people would cross tomorrow without thinking. Eliza's phone buzzed with one final notification, a calendar invite. Not from Graham, not from Eliza, from an account labeled only Calendar Service. Title: Final Meeting, 23:59. Description: Bring the USB. Eliza's chest tightened. Tom didn't want her to stop incidents anymore. He wanted her to deliver evidence into his hands.
Eliza didn't tell anyone about the 23:59 invite. Not because she didn't trust Graham or security, but because she understood Tom's game now. Information moved like currency. He weaponized what people knew, when they knew it, how they reacted. If she told them, they'd set up a trap. Tom would anticipate it. He'd pivot. Someone else would get hurt in the pivot. So Eliza did something she'd never done in her life. She lied by omission. She met Graham at noon in a glass conference room with a view that made the city look like a model. Graham looked older than she'd ever seen him. His suit was perfect, but his eyes were raw from stress and jet lag. Eliza placed the printed invites on the table. She slid the USB drive beside them. Graham stared at the papers as if they were insects. This is madness. It's your account, Eliza said, but it's not you. Graham's jaw tightened. IT says no external breach. Delegated access logs show anomalies. Eliza nodded. Someone is using our risk models. Your name, and now mine. Graham's eyes snapped up. Yours? Eliza swallowed. An invite went out from my account about the glass bridge. I called security. We prevented something worse. Graham's expression shifted. Relief, anger, fear tangled. You didn't tell me. I didn't have time, Eliza lied, because she couldn't tell him about Tom standing in the office without sounding impossible. Graham rubbed his face. Who would do this? Eliza hesitated. Someone who has access. Someone who understands the model. Someone who can nudge outcomes. Graham's eyes narrowed. The subcontractor. Eliza nodded. Or someone in facilities, or security, or... Graham's mouth tightened. Or someone in my office. Eliza felt the air go cold. Graham had said it like he'd already suspected. Graham leaned back, voice low. There's something you should know, he said. Kendra's predecessor didn't just leave. She was let go after a complaint about calendars. Eliza's stomach tightened. What kind of complaint? Graham hesitated. She scheduled meetings in odd time blocks. People said she was controlling, that she liked making people jump. HR called it micromanagement, but she insisted she was preventing incidents. Eliza's pulse thudded. What's her name? Graham said it. Eliza felt the name click against her memory like a key. She'd seen it before in log histories, in a folder, in a forgotten email chain. Graham's voice was grim. She works for the subcontractor now. Eliza's hands tightened on the table. Tom is connected to her, I'm sure. Graham frowned. Tom. Eliza swallowed. A man I met near the dock. He knew my name. Graham's eyes hardened. Will involve police. Full investigation. Eliza nodded, but her mind was already elsewhere, counting hours. 23:59. Bring the USB.
Tom wanted her to show up. He wanted her to choose him over the institution. He wanted to prove that people could be pulled by a calendar more reliably than by law.
That night, Eliza sat at her kitchen table and stared at the USB drive. Inside it were logs, invites, attachments, proof. But proof didn't matter if the person holding it was blamed, silenced, erased. Eliza opened her laptop and made a decision. She copied everything to a secure cloud storage account not tied to her work. Then she scheduled an email to a journalist she'd met once at a conference, a woman who covered tech and corporate risk, who loved stories about systems failing in clever ways. Eliza set the email to send at 0005, 5 minutes after midnight. If anything happened to her at 23:59, the evidence would still escape. Eliza looked at the clock. 23:12. She put on her coat. She didn't go to Canary Wharf. She went to the place Tom would least expect a calendar to lose its power: a church. Not a grand cathedral, a small one tucked into a side street near Aldgate, lights warm against the wet night. Eliza had passed it 100 times without going in. Tonight, she stepped through the door and felt the hush wrap around her. Different from the engineered silence of a boardroom, softer, human. She sat in the back pew and watched the clock above the doorway tick toward midnight. Her phone was off. Her laptop stayed at home, email scheduled, cloud upload complete. The USB drive sat in her coat pocket like a small heart. At 23:58, the church door creaked open. A figure entered. Navy coat, messenger bag. Tom. Eliza's breath caught. Her mind screamed, how? Tom walked slowly down the aisle, shoes tapping softly, as if he belonged even here. He slid into the pew beside her without asking. You're late, he whispered. Eliza's voice was steady. I'm on time, just not where you told me to be. Tom smiled, faint admiration. Clever. Eliza stared straight ahead. You wanted the USB. Tom's eyes flicked to her pocket. Yes. Eliza swallowed. Why? Tom leaned back, gaze drifting to the altar, as if he was appreciating the architecture. Because the system is bigger than you think. It's not one account, not one boss, not one firm. Calendars run the city. They decide where people are, when they're tired, when they're distracted. If you can steer calendars, you can steer London. Eliza's throat tightened. People aren't chess pieces. Tom's smile softened. Finance taught you they are. Eliza turned to him, anger sharp. You hurt people. Tom's eyes stayed calm. The city hurts people. I just predict where. Eliza's voice shook. No, you nudge. Tom's smile faded. Sometimes a nudge is mercy. Sometimes it's proof. Eliza's heart hammered. And what proof do you want from me? Tom's gaze fixed hers. That you'll choose the calendar over the institution. That you'll deliver evidence to the only person who truly understands it. Eliza inhaled slowly. You mean you? Tom nodded, satisfied. Eliza reached into her pocket and pulled out the USB. Tom's hand extended. Then Eliza held it up, not to him, but to the small camera mounted high on the church wall. A security camera, tiny, almost invisible, the kind installed after petty vandalism. Tom's eyes flickered upward. Eliza's voice was quiet, but razor sharp. Smile. Tom's expression tightened. What have you done? Eliza's hands trembled, but her voice didn't. I scheduled an email. If I don't cancel it, everything goes out. Logs, invites, attachments, names. Tom's jaw clenched. You think a journalist will protect you? Eliza swallowed. No. I think sunlight makes it harder to hide. Tom leaned closer, voice low and dangerous now. You're making a mistake. Eliza's pulse hammered. Maybe, But it'll be my mistake, not one you scheduled.
Tom stared at her for a long moment. Then, slowly, he smiled again. But this time it was cold. "You're learning," he murmured. "That's rare." Eliza held the USB tighter. "Walk away." Tom's days drifted to the church door, to the quiet street outside. He stood, unhurried, as if leaving a meeting he'd decided was no longer useful. At the aisle, he paused and looked back. "You think you've broken the calendar," he said softly, "but you've just made yourself a new kind of appointment." Then he left, disappearing into the night. Eliza sat shaking, listening to the church's gentle silence, waiting for midnight to pass like a verdict. 05 arrived. Her phone, turned back on, pinged, an outgoing email confirmation. The evidence had left her hands. Somewhere in London, Tom would feel the shift. The system would adjust. The calendar would keep ticking. But Eliza had learned the only thing that mattered. A schedule could be weaponized. So could a choice. And for the first time since the first invite, Eliza felt something close to control. Not over the city, not over Tom, but over her own next hour. Outside, rain fell on the pavement like punctuation.